Hello, my friends. Welcome or welcome back. I am your local art witch, and I wanted to give a little update before easing back into uploading. The last time I posted was a month ago, and y'all deserve an explanation. Here in the background, I'm just going to have some footage of me crocheting a doll, and I'll discuss that in a bit as well. If you watched my most recent videos, and even in this one, you may have noticed that my voice was off. Starting in mid-October, I had a wicked, incessant cough, sore throat, head cold. It turned into complete voice loss by Halloween. I had to be so careful about speaking, planning important phone calls like to doctors and stuff because I could only talk so much. I sounded terrible for a while after that. People, even solicitors, they would be calling my phone and I would answer, and I must have sounded like a demon or something because people would just hang up on me. This lingering cold continued. Somehow I had a new child sick. I only have 2 kids, but there was a new child sick each week, and I caught all of the colds. November 30th, and I remember the date because it's my birthday, I decided to test for COVID because it was just lingering so much and I could never catch my breath. And I tested positive. I stayed sick all of December. Christmas break started, I think, around the 22nd of December. The last 2 weeks before then, my oldest child was sick the whole time. Missed that much school. I finally managed to see my doctor in early January. To be fair, there was some kind of lung illness going around my city at that time. It seemed like everybody had it. The hospitals were at overcapacity, couldn't really see anybody. So here's the good news. I got a puffer at this appointment. As my lungs were working at about half capacity, she said, like I wasn't able to fully fill my lungs, which is why I was so breathless. It was really validating because I did feel like I couldn't breathe. I remember having to stop and like breathe hard from chopping carrots. And I was sitting down, like I was so out of breath. The lower half of my lungs just weren't opening. So with this new puffer, I'm breathing a lot better. I got a nasal steroid spray. I'm on a waiting list to see an ENT, and I'm waiting on a chest x-ray. I was warned that I will likely continue to not sound ideal for another 12 weeks. I've decided that I'm not going to wait that long before posting again, and I hope you'll be here for it. I just want to assure you that I am doing my best to recover, and I'm hopeful that I get my old voice back. I'm a little doubtful at this point. Now, let's talk about this doll. Crochet is something I really enjoy. It's meditative and a powerful but discreet way to make magic. I recommend crochet over knitting. To me, it does feel easier to learn, but mostly finding free patterns to get you started is so easy with crochet. I will include some links to patterns in a pinned comment. Your crochet hooks. I found my first hooks in the dollar store. You can find yarn there. Most of the supplies to get started you can find at the dollar store. A good first project is something small like a coaster. So you can have a finished item and a sense of accomplishment. And also it's less devastating if you make a mistake or you hate it, you think it looks terrible. You just move on to your next coaster. The hardest, very hardest part of learning to crochet is holding the yarn, controlling the tension. Once you have that, you're off. You're good. You can crochet pretty much anything. If you want to learn how to crochet, it can be pretty simple to start. All you need is a crochet hook. It'll look something like this. This is metal. You'll see the little tip here on the side. This will tell us the size. This one I got at the dollar store, and you can get hooks pretty easy at the dollar store. And a ball of yarn. When you go to purchase a ball of yarn, you'll notice that they tend to have a band around them, and it gives us a lot of information. We see the brand, Loops and Threads. We see the impeccable line here. A lot of patterns will be on the other side of the band once I open it. It tells us how many yards, ounces. We're going to zoom in. This is the part you're going to want to look at for your first project. We want to see the size of the yarn and the recommended hook. This is recommending a 5mm hook, pretty standard for a medium weight yarn. If you look here, 3.5, that tells me that this hook is smaller than what they're recommending. That can be good depending on what you're trying to achieve. But if you are just starting, I would highly recommend going by what they're recommending. This will give you a good head start, and then you're not working so tight that you're hurting yourself. Some of the patterns that are included, they're either knit or crochet, and it usually tells you somewhere on the band what type. So this is a knitted pattern here, and it will tell you what they recommend in order to make it. So we would need 9 balls of this yarn to make this blanket. These are the washing instructions, and while I cannot remember what all of these symbols mean, I do know that this is acrylic, which means it does not take well to heat. It will melt. It's basically plastic. So machine wash cold, very likely, especially if I want it to keep its color, and then to either air dry or tumble dry, like really, really low. Here, we'll see the color of the yarn. It's walnut. Something that's really important to remember with yarns that have a lot number is that not all the walnut colors that they make are exactly the same. If you want your brown, your blue, whichever, to be the same shade throughout the project, buy enough balls under the same lot number so the colors match. Otherwise, you'll get kind of different shades and slightly different variations. And if that's what you're looking for, then that's perfect. I would recommend cotton for your very first project, a cotton type of yarn, because it's so versatile. You can wash it. A great first project is something like a coaster, maybe a little washcloth. I found a pattern for a tawashi once, which is like a Japanese face scrubby. I recommend small projects to start, so that way you are learning, but the project is small. And once you finish it, you have that sense of accomplishment, which is really, really important when you're learning something that could potentially leave you a little frustrated. Mastering your tension, holding the yarn, figuring out what to do with your hands is going to be the hardest part of this. I have taught people before, a couple people. Some people really catch on fast, other people don't. The people who have the struggles usually have a difficult time with this type of grip, figuring out how to control this tension and how to have both hands kind of working and doing something at the same time, but you will get there. Let's say you enjoy crocheting. You've made a couple face cloths or whatever, and you're like, hey, I really like this. This is kind of therapeutic. I wanted to have a couple extra recommendations for things that I have found helpful. When I began, I just used a hook like so. And the problem with that is if you're crocheting for long periods of time, this will eventually give you hand pain because the hook is just so small and you're gripping it, and having your hand in one position like so will lead to a lot of pain. I splurged on these. I will have that link in the description for you. I love these. They're a little bit thicker. They're a little grippy. They have these flat parts, and so my hand isn't having to grip a slippery, this is metal here. So it just gives me something extra to grip onto. It has a tiny bit of squish, and it's slightly thicker than the hook itself, all of which helps me to be able to crochet longer without discomfort. I did buy a special pair of scissors. So these are just my scissors, and they stay in my little, they're called notions. I have a notion box, and that's just your tools that you use. I use these locks, especially when I'm finishing up a project. Let's say I'm done the project for the day. My hand is too sore, it's too late, whatever. This is a little doll arm I'm making, and I don't want to lose my stitch from maybe picking it up the wrong way and pulling some stitches. What you do is you unlock the mechanism, you put it through, and then I loop my yarn, and then when I go to pull it, if it pulls accidentally, I'm not going to lose my working loop here. So I really like these little locks for that. When I bought my set of ergonomic hooks, it came with some of these plastic locks, which was helpful. I will often use these also at the beginning of a row, but also something that can be really helpful for you. Let's say you can't really justify a lock yet. You can also get embroidery floss at the dollar store. Buy a bright embroidery floss of a color that you're not working with and loop it. This is a great way. This is about 13 rows, I think. Let's say you re-loop it every 5 rows, and then you have this. You can easily tell how many rows you have without having to go back and try to figure it out, because that's happened to me a few times. Bobby pins. Depending on your pattern, I like to use bobby pins for increases, decreases, whenever the pattern changes a little bit, and then I don't have to pull out and redo the row because I lost track of where I was. If I'm doing repetitive rows of the same amount of stitches, like I am here, I'm just building an arm, I tend to just use a bobby pin to let me know where the row ends and begins. Another thing that has really helped me with crochet is a yarn needle. This is a hooked one, which is my absolute favorite because I enjoy making dolls. And so being able to put it in without stretching out my stitches too much is really beneficial. I work really, really tight and really, really tough. I need a metal needle because I break all the plastic ones. You'll notice that the eye of this needle is quite wide, and that's so I can get my yarn in there. And we just use this to take your tails, weave them in, and then you have like a tidy looking project at the end. I've really, really enjoyed making dolls in the last little while because they're smaller projects. I finish them pretty decently fast, and then I have a very cute doll that I'm able to look at when I'm done. The other benefit is these dolls, I can also make them into spirit dolls, protective dolls for people, even people who have to be secretive in their practice, and then nobody else is the wiser as to what that doll is providing them. Another thing I wanted to share is to give you permission to, I don't know how to put this nicely, but to suck when you start. None of us are born just with this ability to be amazing at everything all of the time. You got to start somewhere. So I wanted to show you the very first doll I made, and then the second doll, and then my current dolls. This is the very first doll I made. She's a little dirty. She's been sitting around for a little bit. I have no idea what got on her. She is made with some sort of weird cooking twine I found because I decided, you know what, I'm going to pick up this crochet thing again. Her eyes and cheeks are painted on because I only had this yarn. You'll notice how gappy my stitches are. And that's because I use the standard stitch. With crocheting a doll, you want to use a different type of stitch. Here's her belly. I did have some leftover like dark blue yarn for her undies. And then this pink yarn that I had that was supposed to be a hat that I couldn't quite master. So you can see how gappy she is. You can see how messy it is, but I keep her around because she is a sign of what progress you can make. And let me show you. This is doll number 2 that I have never finished and am probably not going to. That's okay. I'll show you why. The stitches are much more even. You see that there is still quite a bit of gaps. We can see the stuffing on the inside of her head. This is where her hair was supposed to go. I do have to remove these because I have decided that she's not gonna be finished. I'm gonna try her again. I'll show you with a different doll, but when I crocheted her, I couldn't tell the inside of my project from the outside of my project. I was like, it doesn't really matter. It does. This doll is actually inside out. So here she is. I will link the pattern that I used. Green Frog Crochet is by far my very favorite creator. Look at the cute dolls. And imagine how cute she would have been if I would have finished. But she's kind of perfect if you wanted to make her into a magic doll, a protective force in your house, like nobody would ever guess. Now I'm going to show you my most recent finished project. I am proud of her. She is, I'm going to embarrass myself online a little bit, but she is a character I made for a comic I want to finish. Her name is Rhiannon. She's a princess. I wanted to, if you're making something like a comic, it has to be it has to be indulgent. You have to indulge every trope, every thing you ever wanted to put into something, because a comic is a very, very long project. So I wanted to make a comic kind of using a lot of anime-ish tropes. And so I came up with this character. Notice the difference between my very first and my most recent. You can see I've really improved on my stitches. And this is using a different type of stitch than I used here. My stitches are much more even. This is actually exactly the same pattern as this doll here. Let's rise us up. I just changed the dress a little to match the character that I am trying to make. That's the difference of a year of crocheting things right here. Of practicing and practicing, figuring out what hook works best. I found the smaller the hook, the better my stitches were. And if you were to throw her at somebody, they would be knocked out, but it works. You can also make much smaller projects. I wish I could remember where I found this. It was a Pinterest pattern. There are so many things that you can do. You can make these small projects and you can be meditative and weave magic into every stitch, and nobody needs to know. I really have a love of magic that can be not secretive for the sake of being secretive, but safe for literally anybody to be able to practice. I'd love to go into it more with you, but I feel like I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for spending time with me, giving me time to get better. I did just recently check, and as of right this second, we are at 1,000 subscribers, which is insane. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to doing more stealth craft with you and doing some live streams this coming year. I think that would be really fun. I have been your local art witch. And as always, I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye for now.